That's fair. Okay, so today I'd like to introduce you guys to Alicia. I've followed her Instagram account for a while, but she owns Bloomtide Flowers along with her husband, Jake, and they live in a small town of McKinleyville in coastal Northern California. So the hardiness zone there is 9B, but unlike others in California, they never really get too hot. So from July to October, their daily highs are like 61 to 65.
Oh, that sounds perfect.
So it's like my perfect temperature. That's the temperature I want to be at all times. So without further ado, I'm gonna turn it over to you, Alicia.
All right. So yeah, so I tried to think about how to share the information of how we grew dahlias and grow bags with people that are in a much different climate than I am in. So sometimes it's hard to think of all the things when you're the one that's in it. So if I miss anything or there's something that's obvious to you that I didn't think of, just let me know. But yeah, for the perspective of from the perspective of growing in such a cool climate, that would probably change a little bit about growing in grow bags for others that are in a warmer climate. But I've tried to include some tips about how to work around that. So let's see, let's get started here. So why would I even think to grow dahlias in grow bags? I began my gardening journey as a container gardener. I rented, and once I started gardening and buying plants, I never wanted to leave them behind. I was connected to them from the beginning. So I only moved a couple of times from the place I lived in when I started container gardening. I had probably about 7 pots. Then I moved to the house I lived in for a couple years and made it up to like 100. Then my husband and I got married, and then it probably went up to close to 200. And then we moved where we live now. And that's when I finally started to put plants in the ground. But I was a container gardener for, oh gosh, probably like 6 years. So that's what I started with. That's what I was familiar with. And let's see, my MO was if I liked a plant, I would just buy it and buy a new container. So that'll come in handy a little bit later on in my dahlia journey. I became aware of dahlias and grow bags in 2018. Well, there was a lady on Instagram sharing that she grew dahlias, and she lived in Bermuda, and she still has her Instagram account. I'm not sure how active she is, but I know from reading some posts online that she and Leanne of Cozy Town like share seeds, or she bought some of Leanne's seeds and grew them out in Bermuda and came up with like a new dahlia that Leanne sold this year. So I mean, she lives in zone 11, I think, and that's pretty unusual. But for her, she lives in a hurricane area. Here, they get hurricanes and lots of summer rain, and so grow bags worked great for her. And that's the first time I saw anybody growing dahlias in them. And she had like a little farm, and she just had rows and rows of them. And it was just kind of one of those things I thought, oh, how cool. And just kind of, it was tucked in the back of my mind, but never thought much more of it. So that was my first exposure to the idea. And then I live in so I'm in coastal Northern California. If you think of San Francisco, most people think that's Northern California. I'm 5 hours north of that. So there's a whole corner of California way up by Oregon that we kind of get forgotten about. And that's where I live. And cannabis growing for years has been huge. So I was used to seeing a lot of the marijuana growers growing in grow bags. Like if you live here, you know someone that has a farm or has a few plants, and it was really common for those growers to use grow bags. So they're kind of everywhere here. I had just never used them other than like one or two for one of my deck plants, just because I don't know. I just had never. I like always liked the pretty ceramic glaze pots. So All right, so that's a little bit of the background of my exposure and history with grow bags before actually using them. So why did we start growing in grow bags? There are two main reasons. Number one being gophers. I kind of looked to see if you guys had gophers there. It looks like maybe you have like groundhogs or other little critters, but we have gophers really bad, and they come up, they tunnel all over, and they love eating dahlias. And so I wanted to find a way to keep my brand new tubers that I was buying in safe from them. There is a farm at the end of my road that's very well established, and they grow dahlias. And when I first kind of got started and talking to them, I remember them telling me they figured they lost about 10% every year to gophers of their dahlia crop. And I thought, okay, well, if I have 1,000 plants, that's 100 tubers that I don't want to give up. So at first I didn't really mind. But once I started collecting tubers and I had my eye on some that were really hard to replace, I thought, okay, I'm going to have to do something, because I can't just buy these again if I lose them to gophers. I had a row of dahlias that I put some higher priced ones that I'd bought mixed in with some that I'd had for years. And when, the gophers ate my Kilguyane and my Irish ruffles, they went straight for the good ones. So I thought, okay, I'm going to have to do something where I don't have to worry about losing these things just to gophers for the first year. So another reason is to keep them quarantined. Anytime I bring in new dahlias, I keep them separate. I don't plant them out with I grow about 4,000. So to give a little idea, I had about 4,000 last year. So I don't put the new ones with the ones I've been growing for years, to just try to keep an eye on what's going on, and before I divide them up and plant them out a second year, just to kind of keep them safe from my new ones, safe my old ones, safe from my new ones. And I don't sell the new tuber stock that I get. I grow them out for 2 to 3 years. So I wasn't worried about making tubers as much as to keep an eye on the plants. So for me, it was a way to keep these new plants that I would buy in safe from the gophers, separate from everything else, and just to keep the tubers from rotting from rain, which we get a lot of here, a lot of moisture in our ground, and kind of like just a sure way to keep them going from year to year, to build up my stock of the new ones, sorry. So yeah, and then because the grow bags have such great drainage, they're fabric. I don't know if you've seen them, if you've seen them at the nurseries. They're just like light as air. There's no standing water in them. So if we always get rain when it's time to harvest, and it rains a lot, and usually it rains a lot. And I would always worry about the ones left in the ground, like, okay, are they gonna make it? Usually they'd be fine, but like, again, it's all about, what do I want to have to replace? I don't want to have to replace the new ones I'm buying. So this is just another reason for using the grow bags. Now, why other people might try grow bags is maybe you have poor or clay soil. I know a farmer in Atlanta, she's on hard red clay soil. And so she has a farm of about 10,000 plants, all in grow bags. And again, the drainage, if it rains a lot where you live, I know sometimes I don't have summer rains like a lot of people that depend on summer rain to water their crops. But I've seen a lot of people lose dahlias to some summer rainstorms that come through. And so that might be another reason to try them out. The pros of them, the climate and weather patterns. Again, seeing some people lose them, like I just mentioned, intense rains that cause flooding or waterlogged soil, where you haven't experienced that before. That's mostly what I've seen is gardeners with a new yard that they've never grown in, or or just like some of these California rains that we've had that were just like built up and built up and built up, and things flooded, you know, land flooded that hadn't flooded before. And you just, you know, you can't have your dahlias sitting in that water. So that would be another pro to trying out grow bags. Let's see. Oh, and then, so anytime I see anyone mention that they grow in the bags, it gets a lot of attention. Even when I first shared on my Instagram that I had used them, that's probably given me more, like, you know, messages with people, more questions about anything that I've ever shared before. Everybody's like, it piques their interests, and I'm not really sure why. Maybe it's because they're looking for just another option, but I just noticed that, like, it seems to be kind of a newer thing that's becoming, people are becoming more aware of, that is another option, and they want to know more. So I think growing in the grow bags will catch on more as people share that they do it. I know, like I said, the farmer that I know of in Georgia, when I first realized she was doing it, I just kind of, without bombarding her with too many questions, she's a friend of mine, but I still was just like, wow, like, you're doing all those in grow bags, like, that's amazing. Why? And it was her soil, but also it's just like, I don't know, you just don't see too many people with a whole bunch of them in there, and it's pretty cool. But I think more people will share how they grow them this way, and why in the next couple of years I think it'll catch on more. Let's see. There are physical benefits to growing in these bags. Planting is quick and easy. There's no digging. There's less bending over. The plants are elevated, so it's kind of like growing in a raised bed. So you don't have to bend all the way over to take care of them. When my husband and I bottom leafed this summer, we made 2 rounds through them. We just sat on a stool and scooted backwards, and it was so much nicer than bottom leafing all the rest of them. You know, no crawling on our hands and knees. It was just like, we were looked forward to it. It's a quick and easy way to cull your plants. I work full time, and the dahlias are my side gig. And I can't tell you how many times, you know, I go out and I've seen like a plant that I want to get rid of. And usually if my husband and I are on different schedules, I'll flag it, tell him, babe, go dig this one up today. But sometimes we're just like running on fumes, don't have time. With the grow bags, I would just pick one up and take it over to the garbage area, and done. Like, no worries there. Because sometimes, even though I know a plant needs to go, it'll be a day or two before I can actually get the shovel and get it out of there. So when we're short on time, that's been kind of a silly reason, but I found that really helpful. And then I had a few that maybe I wasn't positive they needed to go, but I wanted to keep them separate from the others, and I would just pick them up and pull them off to this area that I had by the garage and just keep them separate. So they were really portable. I did notice the only time that I saw this happen was we put ours on top of wood chips, and the roots had kind of, just the little tiny thin roots had kind of like attached themselves to the wood chips underneath. And about an hour after I moved that plant, I noticed it kind of wilted, but by the next day it had bounced back up. So there wasn't, there's minimal root disturbance. So moving them around, it could have been just because I had them on the wood chips, and if it would have been cement or something, they might not have done that, or a different kind of surface. But
Yeah, Alicia, sorry, are you okay if I stop the screen share?
Yeah.
Just until you're ready to share those.
Yeah.
1 second. And oh, that is still sharing yours. Do you see on your screen a way to stop sharing?
Yeah. Oh, see a new share. Did that work? Oh,
I think I got it. There we go.
I did it.
Well, thanks. Sorry for that.
No, that's okay. Is that better?
Uh, Mark was asking if you had slides, and I was like, oh, not yet. They could see
Yeah, I
what
have a few pictures to show at the end, if that's okay. Or would it be better to just kind of go through a few now?
we're good. Yeah.
All right. All right, let's see. Yeah, weeding is a breeze. And it's easier to harvest them. There's no digging up muddy, heavy clumps, because I think for a lot of us, you know, the end of the season brings freezing snow or cold temperatures. Or for, like I said, for me, it starts raining and then it's just a muddy mess and the clumps are heavy and it's a lot of physical labor. So we noticed, you know, my husband really loved harvesting the clumps in the grow bags. We there's no wondering if we're getting the nutrients to the plants that they need. Sometimes, you know, sometimes there's no dead spots in the field with these. I know every bag is getting maximum nutrients from the beginning. So if I see a plant that might be struggling, I can pretty much feel confident that it's something in the plant and not because it's not getting the nutrients from the soil. Because I do feed these guys really well, and I will share what I use when I grow my dahlias. Let's see. Yeah, so most likely any early findings of virus or gall would have come in on the tuber and not due to the wide open environment of my field. I do like watch for the health of my plants and inspect all of our tubers. And I know that I had a few that when I dug them up, they had signs of, they had crown gall. And I thought, okay, well, you know, that's probably not from me, maybe from my water. I don't know if that could be the case, but since they're in their own contained environment, it's kind of like makes me feel like I can assess the health of each plant individually and not wonder if it's from outside sources. Let's see. So again, it keeps the plant safer from pests like gophers and burrowing moles and voles. I think that I know I read that you have groundhogs. I don't know if any of you have personal problems with that or how they behave maybe comparatively to gophers, but that could be helpful. I don't know about rabbits though, because I know a lot of people have problems with rabbits and they just hop, right? So that might not be too helpful. I have the one thing that did cross my mind is I have had some fiberglass pots that gophers chewed through and ate my primroses. So I think if they were sitting in a spot for long enough and the gophers were, or the whatever wanted to get to them could, because it's just fabric, they might be insistent enough to try it. But from year to year, I don't think it'll be too bad of an issue. And overwintered pests in the soil, assuming that you're starting with fresh potting soil, you know, I don't deal with too much. I don't have wireworm. I don't have anything super crazy that I've come across, but it's kind of nice to start with that fresh slate every year. And again, that's just comes with it being in a more of a controlled environment, if that exists outside. And I don't have ants farming aphids in these grow bags. I come across probably 5 to 10 plants every year that have aphids, and then there's just ants, you know, ants everywhere, all like up and down the stalk, and I just see their little holes in the ground and it just gives me the creeps. And I haven't had that issue with the bags. But again, if I left them there year after year, they might set up shop because it's nice and toasty and warm, but I haven't had any issues with that. So I thought that was a benefit to the bags. You can put them anywhere and move them at any time. Other than what I mentioned about the little tiny roots grabbing the soil. I feel like I moved quite a few of them that when they were smaller, and the one that I mentioned that did droop for a day, that plant was about 4 feet tall, so it didn't surprise me that it was a little angry when I moved it. But yeah, I was moving plants around pretty frequently, and I used the 5-gallon size, and that was very comfortable to move. They have handles, so they were very comfortable to move a full size plant in my experience. And you can put them in a decorative pot. So I don't think that they're that unattractive, but I thought one cool thing could be that you could just, slip them into like a nice ceramic pot on your deck or your patio, or someplace. And then, because I'm a container gardener in the past, I know like I have used, carts to truck those things around. And when they're full of soil and plants, they're really heavy. And so digging them out could be a little bit difficult. But if you have them in a grow bag, you could just slip them in and then pop them out at the end of the season and carry them to wherever you want to keep them safe, or if you're harvesting them. I'm always trying to think about how to make things easier on my body. So that's one thing that when my husband and I tried this, and we really liked the benefit of it. We're both, we're both 46, so we're not doing this in our 20s. I have some spine issues, so I'm always trying to think about like how I can keep this going for a long time, and what kind of maybe helpful tips I can come up with to share with people, because for some reason I like figuring that stuff out. And so that was one thing that when we started growing this way, light bulbs were going off of the benefits just to our bodies. Some of the cons of growing dahlias in grow bags, you are growing for what would make it good also could be a con. You're growing in that contained space. After year 2, I still think growing in so what I forgot to share is this past 2022 was my second year growing in grow bags. In 2021, I grew, I think, about 100 plants in grow bags. And so last year we grew close to 300. And so after year 2, I still think that growing in the ground overall in healthy soil is better overall. But maybe after this year, I might change my mind. They're completely dependent on us for their nutrients. So that, anytime, sometimes I have plants that I think, well, like I mentioned before, maybe it's just in a dead spot, or maybe it's just not getting, maybe it's not getting the nutrients it needs. We found out this year that even though we get our soil tested every year and we amend it the way we're supposed to amend it, we found out that last year, or we found out this spring, that our soil was super depleted. So, there's always those questions of why did this plant do this, or why did this plant do that? Maybe it's not getting the nutrients it needed. And so in the grow bags, they're completely dependent on you. They can't just grab whatever they need from the soil if if it's accessible to them. And most likely you can't leave. I would guess that you wouldn't, I harvest them every year, but I would guess that you probably can't leave them in the grow bag more than 1 year, because the tubers will fill up the space. If you grew in larger ones, then sure. I do have a picture I'll share of what our tubers after 1 season look like that we harvested from a bag. And they are a little higher maintenance. They need fed and watered more often than in the ground. Just like growing in any container, you have to replenish the food that the plants get, because it all comes from you, and it washes out. It washes out, when you water. So we did start ours off with great potting soil. Here because we do have such a history with cannabis growers, there's several companies that are very local to us in our county that make soils that are just amped up like crazy. I know some of those companies do ship around the country. I've seen other growers mention and heard of other growers talking about some of the businesses that I have access to too. So I don't know specifically which ones, but I know that Fox Farm is a big producer, and I think I've heard of some people in the mid United States using them. So I'm not sure if they go all the way to the east. I don't know how far they go, but I used let's see. Oh, I guess I have a part where I'm going to share what I use. Let's see if I'm there yet. Okay. Okay, so when we did start ours, we started with the good potting soil and an additional fertilizer, and we foliar fed. So I wrote that I thought that they were higher maintenance than in the ground, but that's like from a gardening perspective, you know, I've never actually gardened with dahlias. I've only farmed them, which is kind of strange, but so I've always just kind of like pampered them and given them the most I can. So the ones in the bags did need a little extra attention, but that's because we wanted to. They probably would have been fine if we didn't feed them as much, but so it wasn't actually that much more maintenance for us, but they could be higher maintenance, especially like if you're in a warmer climate where they can get dried out faster. And so getting to the part where we specifically how we do it, we start off with the best potting soil that we had access to. There's probably some that are a little better, but we use a company called Fox Farm, and Happy Frog was the potting soil that we used. I used to use it when I started out container gardening, and so that was my go-to when we did the grow bags, and it's like it was awesome. And then we used Dr. Earth Flower Girl fertilizer. Started out, filled the pot about 3/4 full, and then I also added the Dr. Earth Flower Girl fertilizer according to the package. I can't remember how, it might have been like a tablespoon for 5 gallons, something like that. Stirred it in, and then planted our tubers, starting out like with really on a good foot. Staking, typically we don't stake our dahlias. We don't have a lot of wind at our house nearby because we are coastal. There is a lot of wind where we live, and we get like maybe 2 windstorms a summer. So that could change in the future, but historically we've never staked except for as needed. We use fiberglass rod posts from Tractor Supply and zip ties, just kind of like, you know, identifying one that was kind of like looking a little wobbly. It's mostly because my husband gets like really irritated if things look messy, so he'll prop one up individually. And we did the same thing in the grow bags, and that worked really well. The 5 gallons are deep enough that that there's enough depth to get a stake in there, and it stayed really well. I've seen where someone shared that they took a tomato cage and flipped it upside down. So the flat part, the round top, was on the soil, and then they used earth staples to pin down the cage to the soil, the potting soil in the grow bag, and it fit the perfect like diameter of the bag. And I think I'm going to try that this year. We got a hold of some free tomato cages, so I'm going to give that a try to see how that works. A little experiment. I love to experiment. Otherwise, I've seen, like, again, my friend Lori that has the farm in Georgia. She stakes hers like a typical farm does. She has the T-posts at the end of the end and midway through the aisles or the rows, and then she uses the Horton Nova netting. I think she uses like 2 layers, like most people do, and she lets the dahlias grow up through that. So I've seen pictures, and you really can't, if you didn't see the edges of the bags, you wouldn't even know that they weren't in the ground. So I don't know for a garden situation if you'd want to do something like that, but even if you had a small plot in your backyard, that's something that I think that could be totally doable. One thing that was nice is you can kind of make this sort of well, I'm always, like I said, looking at how to make it easy on your body. We set up stations to do things. And so when we filled the bags, we did that, you know, we did that in one area, lined them all up, had our We emptied the potting soil into a bigger container, and then we used shovels to fill them all. So it was super easy on the body. And then we would load them up in the back of a pickup truck or our tractor that has a trailer, and we would like deliver them to the area that we ended up leaving them in on our land. And so that was a nice way of just like it is, we could do it on the morning before work without getting too messy and sweaty. So that was kind of nice. And let's see. The one we actually set up our grow bags, we mimicked the fields, and we set it up just like we were growing in the field, side by side, 2 by 2, down the length of the length of our field beds. And they took up about the same spot, the same amount of space. When I planted them the same depth as in the ground. I plant my dahlias super deep. I plant them about 6 inches. That's probably why we don't end up staking, is because they've got all that extra support. And I even planting deep, we end up usually mounding a couple times. So some of our tubers end up like 8 feet down in the ground. So, or 8 inches down in the ground. And so I just did the same thing with the grow bags. I knew that we weren't going to stake them all. So I wanted them to be deep in those pots to get some support, so they wouldn't be flopping all over the place. So what that meant was at planting time, I put them down about 4 inches because the pots were only about 75% full. And then as they would grow, I would mound them just like I would in the ground, probably 2 or 3 times. And then when they started leafing out about the time they needed pinched, we came with a cart and some potting soil and topped the bags off and tamped the soil down so that they were at just about 1/2 inches from the top lip of the grow bag. I wanted the soil to be nice and full. And then, yeah, we had a couple at the end that flopped over, but that was like in October. So we had our plants get pretty tall, and they were pretty sturdy in those bags. The reason I don't just fill the bag up and then put the tuber down in the bottom is because of how the potting soil holds onto moisture, and because we are so cool and moist. I always feel like I don't want too much potting soil around the tuber, because I've had a few rot, and so I just I like to keep a shallow layer of soil over that tuber, and then as it shows that it's going to grow, then I'll cover it up, and that seems to work really well here. But again, that's like we're probably like right now it's cloudy and nasty, but like we don't have a spring that we wake up and it's nice. Like we have mild winters usually, and then spring comes, and then we have some more rain, then it kind of like it's like 50, 55. If it hits 62, we're excited. We had a random day last week that was like, it was supposed to be 71. And even when I looked at the weather app, it was like, it shot up to 71. It ended up being 81, which was crazy. But yeah, our spring is like still very cool and a lot of fog and moisture. So I always have to be careful of too much moisture on my tubers, where you might not have to worry about that. If you were to do it, you might be able to just like put that tuber down in there and cover it and be good. So they do require more water since the bags drain so well and they don't hold on to a lot of moisture. That's where I think the quality of the potting soil that you use comes in. There are like, I know there's like I don't know if you have black gold. That one is a nice moisture retaining potting soil. So that might be something that you would look into, is how good of a potting soil that you want to go for, and what the moisture retention is. The one thing that I wanted to experiment with more and didn't do a whole lot of is mulching the bags. We have rice straw here, and that's usually what I would use to mulch most of my stuff with because it's really affordable. It was really affordable, but that was something that I was able to experiment in our larger grow bags that we used, and I could totally tell a difference with the soil in those bags because I would lift the mulch and look under there and the soil was nice and fluffy versus the ones that were in the smaller grow bags where it was kind of a little bit crispy on top the way potting soil gets. And then underneath the mulched bags there was a lot of worm and little crawly critter activity. We meant to mulch the bags, but we just ran out of time and we got one single bag on the end of a row mulched, and that was kind of like my tester. So this year we're going to definitely mulch them all and see how that helps. Yeah, and like I said, the practice one that we got to and our bigger bags, it not only changed it not only there was life under the mulch. When I felt picked up and felt the potting soil in the mulch bags, it felt more like soil than potting soil because it just kind of had mixed with all the critters and stuff. I don't know, whatever they did made it just was nicer. I liked it a lot better. And coming out of winter, the soil in those bags is a lot nicer. So as far as plant care, we took care of them just like the plants that we have in the field. Pinch them like normal. Just took care of them like normal. We always foliar feed the field dahlias a couple times a season. These got kelp foliar feed 2 times last summer, and then we did a molasses foliar feed 2 times. That was just kind of you could see them respond just like any other plant. They were happy. And then we set up sticky traps just like in the field with bamboo stakes in some of the bags, and I think you can see it in one of the pictures I'll share. So again, keeping in mind that my summers are very cool and only a handful of days in the 70s. My goal to water this year was 3 times a week. We don't have automatic water. We usually overhead water the dahlias that we grow in the field with sprinklers. And with the grow bags, not being in soil where they could just reach out for whatever moisture they could get, we hand watered them all with a hose and a watering wand. And that was a big job. That took us, I think, 2 hours, about a little over 2 hours to water them all each time. And I wouldn't say that it was a waste of time. I enjoyed the time that I spent watering because I spent more time staring at the plants than I probably would have otherwise if I didn't have to look at them while I was watering them. And it just kind of took me back to my days when I was a container gardener, and it was relaxing, and I enjoyed hand watering them. But we gave them a nice good drink. Like I said, with the goal being 3 times a week, it ended up to be more like 2.5 times a week. And why I think that's important to note is that the year before, when I had my first year using them and using the grow bags, I watered them once a week. And the tubers that I pulled out of them, I didn't have any expectations because I was just trying to keep them safe, like I said, from the gophers. But they were really small. Some of my tubers were little, thumb tip size. And I divided them like normal, planted them. They were in the ground this year, and they gave me nice big plants. But when I was trying to think of what we could do different this year, just overall to change the growing experience, watering is what I decided I could change. So we made a big effort to water more. And I mean, that has to be the difference because we used the same potting soil, same fertilizer last year, and the tubers this year were just great. So and You might have to water more in a hotter environment, but I would recommend like just make sure to water. I think that kind of gets a little overlooked with dahlias. You guys probably know, most of you have been growing dahlias probably way longer than I have, but I know when I talk to people that they don't usually like realize that you need to water them so much when they're full grown plants. So yeah, we'll definitely keep up with a goal of watering a lot this year. We're trying to set up drip tape. We're getting water pipes installed in the field this year. So actually currently, so we'll have drip set up hopefully this summer, but I think I'm gonna probably want to hand water at least once a week just to give them a nice deep drink and keep an eye on them. Because I thought that I really liked it. So and then we deadheaded like normal and kept the plants and cleaned up like that, like for like any other plant in the field, and they just behaved. You wouldn't know, especially like when you look out and look across the bags to the field, you couldn't tell the difference from above. So I thought that was pretty cool. So ending the season with grow bags. The one thing that I really thought was cool about them too is that you can gather them up and you can take them someplace that you want to work on them. You don't have to stay outside in the snow and the rain and the cold. You can take them to a sheltered spot to work on. We had, how did that work last year? Yeah, so last year, because they're my new dahlias and I grow them out and I don't plan on selling them for 2 to 3 years, they were the last ones that we plan on harvesting. So we got through all of the field dahlias, and then our weather took a really crazy turn and we got so much rain, and like I think we usually get a couple of nights in the 30s in our winters, and I remember one night in the 20s in the last 8 years that I've lived in my house. And this winter we had 6 to 8 nights in the 20s. And they were high 20s, like 26, 27, but still and then we had weeks in the 30s. So it was just like, I've never had to worry about tubers freezing, like not even a little bit. So it was definitely a winter of like a lot of like not knowing what to expect, but just trying to deal with weather situations I never had to before. And when we realized we couldn't, like we had all these brand new dahlias out there, not knowing like, oh, will they freeze? Will they won't? And then another thing is when the forecast temperature is one thing, it might drop, everybody's experiencing this year, like big drops from what's forecasted. So we were kind of freaking out, like we don't want to lose the new dahlias. So we were able to round those up and cover them. And I have a couple of ways that we covered them. I'll show you in one of the pictures what we did. It's kind of funny. So that's kind of like a cool thing to be able to do, rather than having them out in the ground, not knowing what's going to happen to them, not being able to move them. One thing that's kind of handy to know when you're harvesting them is you can, well, I have a video of this too. So you can scoop the soil out, or you can tip it out. So instead of like, getting out there with your pitchfork, or we use a potato digger, it's just like a lot nicer on your body. You can just like lift it up to an elevated area so you're not hunched over, and you can, tip the pot over and grab the dahlia out that way without having to be hunched over or get on your knees. It's just all around a lot more pleasant experience. And let's see. I did read somebody had a tip where they took the bag and they just kind of like dropped it on, like kept it a few inches above the ground and kind of dropped it on the ground a couple of times, and that would like loosen up the soil around the soil and the roots around the bottom so that it would let go of the bag, and then you can get them out a little bit easier. Because my husband got started on harvesting, and then I came along thinking like, oh, how hard is it going to be? And I like grabbed a clump, and I should have known better, but I instantly pulled and heard like the snap of the necks breaking, and I was just like, oh my gosh, can't believe I did that. So yeah, there's a little bit of like some massaging that goes into it, but all in all, it's still way better than having like a heavy old clump of tubers with a bunch of muddy soil on the bottom. Let's see. So, yeah, so I mentioned that you can move them inside. Like I know a lot of people, like if you have the end of the season, you have a dahlia that you're keeping an eye on, it hasn't bloomed yet, or maybe you know, it's a seedling, it hasn't bloomed, and you just want to see it bloom, make sure it's what you think it is. And you have that 1 or 2 days that's going to be bad, and then it's going to be beautiful after again. You know, you can bring them inside, put them in your garage, and then bring them back outside. And it's not like carting a bunch of heavy pots around. It's like I said, they're just really easy to move around. So that's a benefit. And we, in that situation that we had, we stacked ours and covered them a couple different ways. Let's see. Oh, I missed a page here. All right, so let's see what time is it? Okay, cool. Lessons that we learned growing our dahlias. What we liked was what I've mentioned a couple times. It was kinder to our bodies. That's just like huge for me. And my happy surprise was that it was great for tuber production. In some cases, I actually like the tubers that we got out of the grow bags better than the ones that we got in the fields. We had a really wet late spring last year. It rained into June, and some of our dahlias didn't get planted until July in the ground, and we planted them because we had to, and I lost a lot to rot. And some of the ones that made it, they didn't store well, they didn't look good, and I didn't have any major loss in the grow bags. They were all beautiful. It was crazy. I had a couple of I think I had like I know Bracken Rose was one of them. I had a couple of them that I planted half my stock in the field and half my stock in the grow bags, and what came out of the grow bags was way superior to what came out of the field. They stored amazing. They still look great, and the ones that came out of the field just didn't do so well. And it could have been just because of that freak year, but overall, just like every single tuber that came out of the grow bags stored great and looked great. And I tried to think of a few things that we didn't like about growing in the grow bags, and I couldn't think of anything. I was trying to be practical and think of some cons, and there weren't any, honestly. Things that we will do differently this season. We're going to plant earlier. That's not a huge like tip, but we planted in July last year, so the plants really came on, which was kind of handy because the plants came on as the field plants were slowing down, and so I was able to turn my attention to more to like looking at them and making sure that they were what they were supposed to be, and spending a little bit more time with the new ones. But we're going to plant earlier because then that will give us a little bit more experience too with seeing like if they wind down faster and how many times we should fertilize. But because we didn't plant till July, only fertilizing foliar fertilizing and that one extra boost in the beginning was enough to get them going. But with a longer season, we'll be able to see like what they actually will need more of. And then we're going to do the drip irrigation on them. So that'll be what we're going to do different, and be able to see how that changes. Because I know hand watering works so well, I'm afraid just to go to drip irrigation. I don't know. I think it'll be fine, but I might have a few that I keep off to the side and hand water anyway, just to compare. Because like I said, I like to experiment. And so that brings me to the end of the main things I wanted to say, I have a few pictures I can share if
Yeah.
it's a good time.
Yep, that would be great. So you just need to reshare your screen. There you go.
And you can still hear me while I'm, oh, come on.
Yep, and you'll just need to make that bigger for us. So the little green circle there.
All right. Of course, I'm not at the beginning. I should have checked that.
You can probably use your area. There you go.
So to give a little idea, oh man,
Try double clicking on it.
there we go. Okay, so this is after we put the potting soil in, and we put the potting soil in, and then we moved them into the rows. We had, this isn't like the finished product. I think you'll be able to see in another picture what it looked like as the season went, as things were more prepared. This was at the beginning, when we were just lining them up. And so we had our field beds are 3 feet wide with 2.25 aisles. And so I did the same thing with the grow bags. The bags probably take about close to 3 feet in width. But I made the aisles just over 2 feet. So it's just the same kind of idea. And so that's what they looked like before plants were in them. The ones I touched on this, but I didn't really explain very well. The grow bags that we use, the black grow bags, are 5 gallon. And we had these little extra grow bags that came from a friend. And we had 2 50 gallons, and then we had 6 or so, 2, 4, 6. I think we had maybe 8 300 gallons, something like really big. So we experimented with 2 types this year. We had these big ones and the 5 gallon ones. So I just wanted to show those because I don't know if like you can actually do, like this is like a raised bed. That's pretty awesome. You can do veggies in these, you can do dahlias in these. I put up to 15 in one of these big ones. So that's another kind of option. You can see, I think this was this bag had the most in it, and it was, I think they ended up to be 15. And oops. Make sure. Okay. Here's proof that that was my watering. That was the watering wand that we walked up and down the beds with. And you can see the little sticky traps. And I moved those up as the plants got taller. And then here you can see they're filled in. So I just had this cheap landscape fabric already on hand. And so that's what we used for most of the dahlias are sitting on that. And then off to the right hand side, there's a little area that had wood chips, and there's a row of 2 and one, I guess a bed of dahlias sitting on the wood chips too. And so I didn't really prefer one over the other. Actually, like the wood chips are nice because it stays nice and clean. But I didn't notice, again, because I'm cool, I didn't notice that like my plants fried because they were in black. I know some growers can use like green. I think green's a pretty popular color for the grow bags, but if anything, I would actually want them to have extra heat from all the black, because I could always use a little more warmth where I live. And so actually, this is a video. And so that's I think that was taken in October. I actually never, I didn't take these pictures with the intention of sharing. It was kind of like the season was over, and then I realized people wanted to know about it, so I had to scour my pictures to find things. I try to document what we do just for my own knowledge, but I had to scour to find some pictures, so some of my pictures aren't the most ideal. These are the big grow bags with the plants in them. So you can, this is we had received our first light frost. So the plants are not looking their best, but these all sat on a bed of wood chips. We put some plastic down, and then we put wood chips over it and poked a bunch of holes in the plastic. And that's what these big grow bags sat on. And here's another picture. So this is at the end when we were tagging, and it was, again, it was nice. I just sat on the ground and scooted down, no excessive leaning over into the plant. That was pretty nice. And then here's at the end of the season when everything's dead, but you can see, or everything's been chopped down, but you can see, even though it looks like a mess, you can see more of like the bones of everything. So the plants were chopped down just like in the field, and then they sat like this until, oh, let's see, I want to see if I had a picture. Oh, it kind of got out of order. This is a picture of when we first started getting they called it bomb cyclones. We kept having these bomb cyclones this winter, which was like an insane amount of rain. And so we started to get worried about the dahlias, and we corralled them and covered them. This is one of our attempts. We also had some under a tree, and we had some insulation, really thick insulation that a friend had given us when he took down a cooler that he had. And we had another area that we had covered with big chunks of insulation when it got really cold. I think the coldest night that we had was about 26. I think we had 26. And the next morning I went outside, and I put my hand into one of the grow bags, and the whole side of it was frozen. And the top 1.5 inches of potting soil on top was completely frozen. And I thought, oh no, what happened to my dahlias? But every single one of them were fine. They made it through just great, which was a happy surprise. Sorry, I keep playing with the screen. I'm just afraid I'm gonna make things go away that I don't want to go away. This is a screenshot of a video that I posted. This was another attempt, but a good example of something that you could do. We have a carport, and we took the grow bags and we just stacked them all to get them out of the rain. And then one really cold night, which you probably couldn't do where you live because you get actually really cold, we put insulation on top of them and blankets and all kinds of stuff just to try to keep the cold out, because we don't really have any good storage solutions. We just kind of wing it. But that was something that was kind of a good benefit of what you can do with them if you had a barn or something that you could keep them, where you could keep them safe. Here's my husband harvesting.
Try to make sure I get my fingers like on the outside of it here. That way you can tell if it's a like this kind of clump or a kind of clump. You know, because if it's a longer one, then you got to be extra careful.
You'll be able to feel if the tubers are sticking out or in a tight ball.
Yep. Feel the design of the plant. A little bit of a shape. What I can do too is I can
And then part 2 of that video.
That looks pretty good, huh?
Mm-hmm. She's waking up.
Some of these have been straight sprouting. Look at that clump for a 5-gallon drip pot. It's not bad. For a 5-gallon drip pot, it's not bad.
Mm-mm. You can tell, let me see, kind of hold it up again. You can tell how close to the bottom I planted them.
Right?
They're like flat.
Yep.
All right, so let's see. I could have either picked 100 photos, or I tried to just keep it to the to a few that gave you a little picture of the season from beginning to end without getting too nuts about the pictures. And so that was our season with grow bags.
That's awesome. We do have some questions. I see Mark is kind of doing the math on the side for some of this. So I'm gonna stop the screen share again. Give me one sec. Okay, so just to clarify, how many are you doing in bags? You're not doing all 4,000 in bags, right?
No. We did about 4,000 in the ground, and then we did we did about 3,500 in the ground, and then we did 350, close to 350 in the black grow bags, and then the bigger ones added some, but I don't remember how many there were in those. So we had about 350.
So Mark, you're gonna have to redo your math for us so we figure out how many yards that is. This on
We bought a pallet of potting soil. Let's see, did they all have fresh? So the big grow bags that I showed off to the side, the ones that were tan, the big ones, those had potting soil in them. My husband and his brother grew cannabis for one season in those, and they used the Happy Frog. So most cannabis growers will reuse, and they're not cannabis growers. It was something that they were able to do as like a hobby. And so most cannabis growers reuse their potting soil a couple of times. So we knew that there were still nutrients in that potting soil, and it was good to go for another season. So what we did was we took those bags and we emptied them. They had to empty them to move them. And then we emptied them about halfway, and then we bought one pallet of the Happy Frog brand new potting soil. And I can't remember how many bags is in a pallet. There's quite a few. And that mixed in 50-50 went into all the bags. So and I think for us a pallet was like $550 or something like that. So it's pricey, but then we just are amending our fields this year, and that's a couple thousand. So it's pricey no matter, so this year we're planning on growing close to 5,000 total, including, wait, or is that in the ground? I think we're planning on planting about 4,700 in the ground. So that, it's expensive no matter what way you look at it.
Sure. So Sharon had a question. Sharon, you might need to clarify what you meant, but she asked, how long do they last? Do you mean the grow bags?
Yes, I mean the grow bags.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, I think they're supposed to last for quite a while. I have definitely noted the wear and tear on them, and you can't tell after one season, other than like a little bit of like green just from the watering and the fertilizer coming out the bottom. They're just as sturdy, and they're just as sturdy as they were last year. So I would imagine I could probably get 5 years out of them.
You're using the felt type.
Yeah.
Do you
Are
know,
there some that have fiberglass or something that would help with the chewing critters?
I think that there, to my knowledge, there aren't that come with it. But one thing I would do is take hardware cloth and put under them. If it wasn't going to be like a more of a permanent setup, and if I wasn't going to harvest if I had the bigger grow bags and I was going to leave them there, I'd probably put like some hardware cloth under them to keep the chewing critters from coming up.
Thank you.
and Sharon and I grow our peppers in grow bags, and I've had them for 5 years now, and I'm going to use them again this year, and it would be the 6th year for those. Different than dahlias, but somebody also wanted to know, what size dahlias do you grow? Do you just grow small ones, or do you grow giants?
I have all. I love them all. I had only a couple of new ones that were giants. And let's see, those ones, I only had a couple that were giants this year. I didn't buy that many. I bought a lot of palms this year and a lot of mini balls. Yeah, I'd put them all in there. I noticed that that's one thing I meant to mention. A few of them, as the season went on and we were watering them, I would reach into the soil to see like what the, like if the roots were filling up the bag. There were a couple that came out and the roots had basically like filled up the whole bag. They just like gobbled up that soil, and they took on. Most of them, when we dug them up, there was about a half of a bag of potting soil left to 3/4. So they didn't really like, that's why I say like I used 5 gallon. I'd probably recommend 7, because I think that would allow you a little, that would allow a little more moisture, a little more room between the tuber and the edge of the bag. As in a hotter climate, because I am so cool, I think that the 5 gallon worked great. But if I were even like going to be in the 80s all the time, I'd probably want a 7 gallon so that I wouldn't have to water as much. That was one thing I meant to mention.
We have another question. They wanted to know, what brand of grow bag do you use?
Oh goodness. I actually had where did my Zoom go? I have the links. Should I share them with you and then you could share, or should I?
Sure, I'll send out the recording, and then I
Okay.
can.
And then you can put the links. Okay, cool. Because I had I had put the link someplace handy so that I could put it in the comments, but I don't I don't know where the comments went.
Okay, so that there should be a thing at the bottom that says chat.
Oh, the chat. Okay, let me see if I can do this really quick. I think this might work.
That works. Yep.
Okay, and it's a link to grow bags that I found in a Facebook group. I always knew that when I went to use them the first year, I Amazon searched grow bags. I thought I had found the best price per, and then Connie of Connie's Dahlias in Canada posted in her dahlia growers group a link to a grow bags that somebody that she knew, I think someone of the active people in the group, used, like their specific ones. And so when I looked at those, I was like, those are a little better priced than the ones that I found. So I bought those. And for some reason, every time I do an Amazon search for 5 gallon black grow bags, even though those don't come up in the search. So I always go to her original link in Facebook and copy and paste it because people ask me, and I just send them to that one. And I actually clicked on the link last night to make sure it would work when I wanted to share it. And it looked like they're a little bit on sale. So, and they do have the options to choose a different gallon size too.
So that same person, sorry, I don't know who's asking, it just says iPhone for me. But they want to know, do you notice a height difference between the plants in the grow bags versus the plants in the ground?
I don't. And that's what I was trying to show with when I panned across them, but I realized I didn't include the video that went across to my regular field too. Because I did plant in July, so those plants did come up a little bit later than the ones in the field. The ones in the field were planted first, like in May, like the end of May, I think. So, and then the grow bags didn't get planted until July. So it took them a while to come on, but once they came up, I couldn't tell the difference. Which could kind of be dangerous if you're growing the big ones. You'd probably want definitely, there's not dangerous, but like, yeah, the big ones that would get really tall, you know, like you definitely would want to stake those. And I did order some giant I think I ordered a couple different giant ones this year. So I'll pay attention to that when I plant them out, see how they do. I did put some Pin Hill watermelon. I had one of the big grow bags. I had, I think, 8 Pin Hill watermelons. I didn't know what they were because the tag got lost in the field last year. So I had this mystery dahlia, and I planted them in the grow bags. And then when they bloomed, they were Pin Hill watermelons, and they got pretty big. But they were also in the bigger grow bags. But they did their Pin Hill watermelon thing. They were beautiful.
Sharon would like to know, have you ever heard of some people burying the grow bags?
You know, I haven't. My first dahlia garden ever, or dahlia, I've never got, like I said, I've never I don't think I said this actually. I've never gardened with dahlias. I bought dahlias and immediately had too many, so we planted them in rows, and I've always just grown them in rows. One of my goals this year was to set up a little dahlia garden. I hope it happens. I'm not sure. And we sunk pots. It was crazy. We sunk pots in the ground, like 5-gallon pots, 1-gallon pots. I sunk crates in the ground because gophers are so voracious here. But I don't know why you couldn't do that. I don't see that it would be a bad idea because they are so fibery. They're so breathable. I don't see that would be like a horrible idea.
Tony, you just need to unmute yourself. There you go.
I was going to say, something just recently, within a year or two, wrote an article in the ADS bulletin about exactly that, putting them in the ground for the vole reasons in his area. I think it may have been a Nick Weber from the East Coast, and he loved the fact that you could just pull them out of the ground so easy, and a lot of the advantages of the grow bag, but he was burying them and was raving about how good it was. So it's being done.
That's pretty interesting. I might set a few off to the side to experiment with that then. Here the gophers have these horrible teeth that they will munch through anything. And while the moles and the voles aren't such a bad thing, they all use the same tunnels, and I could see them like mowing into the bag, but I don't know. It might take them a while to figure out they're there. Because that first year that we sunk all those pots into the ground, I realized the gophers, they didn't really, we never saw a gopher mound in that bed. Like nothing had been planted there before. So I think it would have taken them a little bit to realize something was there, and I didn't need to do all that work. But yeah, I might give that a try. The one thing about growing the pots in the ground is, you don't have to water as much. That helps a lot with that. So especially with grow bags, I could see that being very nice thing to do.
you don't get the drainage is the problem. You know, you're stuck with ground level water drainage. You know, your advantage is if you get wet, you know, you're essentially growing in raised beds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this makes you feel any better, Alicia, but we're close to Amish country here. And they use grow bags for all of the mums in the fall. And they just run lines across the top of all of the bags, and each bag has its own emitter. And that's how they water like thousands and thousands of plants down there. And they seem to do just fine. So
I think we're gonna try the emitters on the big, like the coil emitters on the big ones this year. But we were just gonna run regular drip tape on the little guys, because I can't see us having time to set up. But you never know, we might. That is nice though to know that. I mean, it's just, you know how it is, like you do something that works, and when it works, you just kind of are afraid to try something different.
for sure. Any other, Bob, you'll have to unmute. Oh, you're unmuted, so go for it.
Yeah, I had several questions, and you might have mentioned some of these things, but I've had a big day. I'm getting a little sleepy. Anyway, what are the grow bags actually made out of? Are they a fiber material or a plastic material?
They're you know, are they a polypropylene?
Okay.
I think that's what they are.
Okay. And let's see. Another thing is just your husband and you to do all this work with the planting and everything? Do you have any extra help?
We have my mother-in-law who's obsessed with the dahlias, and she's 74, but she
Oh.
has more energy than my husband and I combined. We don't know how she does it. She is amazing, and her and my sister help a little bit. So
Okay.
my mother-in-law pops through, and she's always down for an easy, like a mindless task. She loves to like write our tags, and she would actually had a picture that I didn't share of her. She was filling up some of the bags last year with the potting soil. So but as far as, yeah, so all summer long it's just me and my husband, and then when she pops in, she helped us bottom leaf last year, and then my sister helped us bottom leaf last year. But it's just mostly my husband and I, and then a little help from them.
Reason I said that is because that's quite a quantity of plants you have and everything. Do you let's see, do you sell and the flowers and or sell the tubers?
We sell the tubers, and we started selling the flowers a little bit last year as kind of just like a tester.
Cut flowers, in other words.
Cut flowers, yeah.
Yeah.
Mostly I did some sales to local florists. This year we're gonna try to push that a little bit harder. Because we both work full time, I've never been able to manage get my mind to manage both. Like when I'm in dahlia tuber selling you know, mode, and I know that's when I should be planning how to make my sale, you know, cultivate my sales outlets. I don't have the brain space or the time to like really focus on it. So it's kind of like we all year we know we're planting these plants out to sell the tubers. So all my focus goes on that, and then I just want a break after that. So
Oh yeah.
but and it's kind of, I think as more people have locally found out about what we do, we get a lot of like, you know, disbelief that we don't sell the flowers. And I used to tell my husband, like, looking like, what's our goal? Our goal is to sell tubers. So that was our focus. And then but as we hope to make this more of something that we do, I would like to go down part-time or eventually not work at my full-time job. We know we have to do something else to make it happen as far as like selling flowers. And so that's a goal. It just hasn't been the main goal.
So I'm
'Cause,
sure
you
you
know, harvesting, just deadheading those things is just like, oh, it takes so much time.
Well, I'm sure you just cut flowers for friends and family and things like vases and all that.
We've done but more like buckets.
Oh, okay.
I did some fundraising. I provided flowers for fundraisers this year, and I don't let anybody come and cut my flowers that are for sale, that the tubers are gonna be for sale, and we use bleach. You know, we bleach our tools between every plant. So it's a lot that I don't trust someone else to do the way I want it done, and a lot just to expect someone else. Like, if, you know, I always have people that want to help me cut the flowers, but I'm thinking, you know, you don't want to help me cut the flowers when you find out what you're going to have to do. So, that's, you know, that's something that we'll have to find help with when if the time comes to do that. Cause my number one focus is to grow healthy plants. And, you know, I've done this since 2017, and I started off growing plants just not knowing what I was going to do. And when I realized I wanted to sell the tubers and started kind of reading more about what that would take and just about dahlia health and plant health in general, I realized like I take it pretty seriously. But there's a lot that I don't know that I'm constantly learning. So I just try to do the best I can. And so that's why they've always been like, I think when I walk through the dahlias, I think of all the people that are going to receive them the next year, that they're not just here for us and for me and for the neighbors to look at. They're here, something that I take a great responsibility for, trying to provide something that's healthy. So
It made Ron very excited to hear this. Ron's like the head of the virus research for the ADS.
oh my gosh,
So he's
so
probably,
excited.
you know, that's
I think I spend the whole summer just terrified that I'm missing something. And I know plant is, you know, there's a lot that I learn every year. And I actually just signed my husband and I up for the American Dahlia Society membership, because we don't have a Dahlia Society local to us. We'd have to go to San Francisco, which is 5 hours away. There used to be one in Coos Bay, Oregon, which is 3 hours away, and I reached out to them, and they are no longer active. So I'm kind of thinking maybe I can maybe see if there's any other local people that we could kind of band together and become like a subchapter of the one in Coos Bay, something. But in the meantime, like we're looking at, if we're going to join the San Francisco one, my husband doesn't really like going to the city. And Santa Cruz is just on the other side of that. So we're used to having to drive hours and hours to get anywhere because we're pretty isolated. So we might join one like that. Because they're coastal. So that would be kind of like, even though they're a little warmer than us, it would be something similar. So yeah, I've always just done this alone and just kind of like looking for local people that might want to like band together to learn with me. But so far I haven't really found anybody.
Go ahead, Bob.
I still had a couple more questions. So in hearing that, I don't assume you participate in any dahlia shows.
Mm-mm.
Okay, at least not yet anyway.
The closest thing I've been in Santa Rosa, which is about 4 hours south of us, they have an annual heirloom festival, and there used to be they would have the table set up for I don't know if they had a show like a day during their festival, but they have like the vases, and that was the first time I'd ever seen something like that in person, like the vases with the flowers and like the little chart next to it with the ribbons, you know, the table with the ribbons. So I think that's that might be the Bay Area, one of the Bay Area chapters that kind of set up their tables there, though I'm not really sure.
And also we're starting to plant here in Ohio just about right now into the very first part of June, but your climate is a little different, and you're planting later. And when is your first frost Like ours could be in November.
Yeah, my first frost is, I actually have that information right here. Where did I? I might have printed it. My brain is just like, oh yeah. So my first frost is typically November 15th.
Okay.
And the reason the very first year I grew dahlias, I had them in to almost Christmas. And I thought, oh, this is cool. Like I got dahlias till Christmas. This is awesome. The next year I had them toward the end of November. And so that's kind of what I grew to expect. And then it happened sooner, you know, I got a frost in September that took out half of them, and I was like, whoa, what happened? This is weird. I'm expecting dahlias till November. So now I know that I've grown them enough to where I know that they are good till about, if I can get to the end of October and they still look good, then I don't like cutting them past probably the 20th of October for anything special, though. They start getting weak because it's so like dreary here. The sun, you know, doesn't come out really anymore. The beginning of October is beautiful here, and then it just starts getting really cold, and not even like cold temperatures, just like the grayness and the overcast. It's really like foggy and moist here, so it just kind of that bone seeping cold where it's just, you don't want to be outside. The plants aren't happy either. They just want to go to sleep. So yeah, so typically I know that I'm expecting maybe a freak frost at the end of September, but like I should be good through about 3 weeks of October.
Okay.
And I can plant here typically, like just like most places, a lot of places they say Mother's Day. I recently heard though, if your lilacs are blooming, it's time to plant dahlias. I've never heard that before this year. So I knew that I thought it would be good if we could try doing a planting in April, because I think most years we'd be fine doing that. But we're just not ready because we're doing the sale, like boxing and shipping tubers out, and I'm already like tapped out on time, and so planning everything is usually putting it all in. It's just, it doesn't happen. And working on the soil, we've done a better job this year of making it happen earlier. Our goal was to plant Mother's Day, and my husband's outside right now amending, so I think he might get some holes dug this weekend. So we should be able to be putting tubers in the ground, if not this weekend, next weekend.
Mhm.
So-
Each year it changes around here a little bit, depends how we've been having it kind of cool around here. And even last night, we had a slight frost in certain areas. So we made sure if we had any tubers and pots or outside, we got them inside just for overnight. But then from here on, it's supposed to be pretty good weather and warm weather.
When I was looking at my pictures, I saw that last year we had a big hailstorm in May 8th last year. So yeah, like last year we had a lot of rain that delayed our planting. If we would have planted in April and the tubers could have gotten established and started putting out roots, we would have probably been okay. But we had our holes, we dig our holes for the field with an auger. And so the holes were all drilled, and then it rained and rained and rained. So we didn't want to plant and then cover them up in, you know, a wet tomb. So we kept waiting for them to dry out. And then eventually it just wasn't, it was getting so late, we just planted anyway. So that kind of messed us up last year. And so there's a couple other dahlia flower florists around here that they've planted their tubers last weekend or even 2 weeks ago. So the more dahlias that I take on, the more I know I need to plant earlier so I have time with them, because the season goes by and I just feel like I don't get enough time with them.
Bob, was that it? I have
Yeah,
another
thank
question.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
Cindy wants to know if you clean the bags between plantings. So from last year to this year.
No, and that was something that I really like tried to figure out how we would handle it. I had initially really wanted to plant a cover crop in the grow bags. But it got so we just couldn't empty them out in time to make that happen. And it was so cold. Like I probably could have done an early, like a winter sown cover crop, but because we usually get some nice weather in January, February here, and then it gets cold and rainy. But this year it was just we had some rain in the winter in like November, December, but literally January 1st, we started off with a big earthquake. We'd already had two. And then that night we got these crazy weird windstorms. And then that week we got a bomb cyclone, and it was just like storm after storm after storm of just insane wind, and then the wind, rain, and then ice, like cold nights we weren't used to. So I wasn't able to plant the cover crop. The only thing we were able to do was we mulched the big bags with alfalfa, hoping that would help over the winter. And I really struggled with like what we're going to do with the soil, because I know eventually we're going to have to replenish it all and start from scratch. But I think at this point we're looking at, we're going to buy in new, and we're going to do the 50-50 mix and fertilize again. I had kept the tags, a tag in each bag and a tag around the plant. And my intention was to keep a tag in each bag of what came out of that bag. So in spring, if I found anything I didn't, like gall or anything that I want to reuse the soil, then I would know which bag wasn't going to get reused. But because we had to move everything around so much, it's a chance that I'm going to take that I'm just going to have to reuse, do the 50-50, and every bag's going to get reused again. So that's just what we're going to have to do with that.
Dwight.
Yes, I have a friend who grows 4,000 dahlias, and she sells them to florists. And every morning they get up as the sun is rising, and they pick 800 dahlias, and they all go into a cool room. And so to your point about, do you want to get into that? It's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And my husband and I both work nights. So that's been the other thing is the logistics of like how can we actually physically make this work? We can't get up with the sun. We're usually going to bed. Well, we don't go to bed with the sun anymore, but we go to bed, like pretty late. So we don't wake up. We don't have typical farmer hours. It's nice because we can have a nice chunk of the day to work on the plants before we go to work, but there is no getting up early to make sure that I can have, not at this stage in my life. I need sleep or I don't function.
And you also need a cool room to store them for the florist to come by and pick them up.
Yeah, I have the carport where I showed that we had the bags all stacked up. That's on the north side of our house in our garage, and it stays pretty cool and dark all day. And usually what I've done is set up a table. It has a gravel on the floor. It's just yeah, there's no cement or anything. So it stays pretty cool in there. And what I've done is set my buckets on a folding table there, and the florists that I know, they've come by. We're pretty trusting. Our neighbors keep an eye out on our place, but it's kind of like a help yourself kind of thing. And that's worked really well so far. So we're planning on doing a cooler definitely this year or next year, but that's worked pretty good for us. But yeah, the logistics of cutting all those flowers is like, ideally it would be nice that we're not deadheading and we're actually cutting them for usable stems. But once they start blowing open in October, it's just like, it's crazy. Once I know what they are and they're tagged, I start chopping them down. Just
Cindy has one more question. She also wanted to know for your auger, are you using a handheld one or like a tractor auger?
we got do you have Harbor Freight?
Yes.
Okay, so we got it from Harbor Freight. I think it was Lori from 3 Acre Farm in Michigan. I think that's her name. I saw somebody on Instagram using an auger, and I was like, what is that? I need to do that. And so I researched them. I might have messaged her and she might have told me, I can't remember, but I did a lot of comparison shopping and found that the one at Harbor Freight was the best buy. And I got two. I got the 6-inch and the 8-inch, and we used the 6-inch to drill the holes. So
And-
we used a stand-up auger.
Okay, so not one that you attach to a drill. That's
No,
what
but I've seen the DeWalt one that that I just saw someone post one yesterday, and I was like, oh, the drill bit on that looks like really nice. My husband does the augering. He's 6'1", so it makes him tired. He did it all like in, I think, a weekend last year, so it was a lot. So I think he has plans to have a friend help him this year, but I don't know if I could use it, not if I wanted to or not. It's pretty intense.
Yeah, there are drill bit ones that are like longer for taller people. It might be worth like snagging one of those and seeing if it's a little easier or not.
Yeah, that would be, yeah, I want to try the one that attaches to the handheld drill, because the ones that I've seen are way bigger than the ones I've seen in the past where people use for digging holes for their tulips or their daffodils. Like the blades on these, the one I've seen is like this big, and it's on a drill. So
Yeah.
that's kind of nice. Definitely wouldn't need to store the storage space for that.
All right. Any other questions for Alicia? No. Okay. Well, Alicia, thank you so much. I've been waiting for this conversation. It's probably my husband's worst nightmare. Hear that I could fill our driveway with dahlias as well. So
I hope it was helpful. I hope I've like talking by myself is a little bit intimidating, and I hope that I know I lost my train of thought a couple times. Hopefully it stayed on point and that it was you found out some stuff you didn't know. And if there's any questions, if you want to give it a try, feel free to email me. I can share my email. And let me just drop it right. Is this where I want to go to chat? I'll just drop my email, and then feel free to email me and ask me questions, and I'll keep my I'm going to do a better job. I don't know how many people use Instagram. I am on Facebook too. Here, let me just write this down really quick. My fingers aren't working. So there's my email. And then everywhere on Instagram and Facebook, I'm Bloomtide Flowers. So I like to share stuff on those two platforms. I don't have the website right now is just like the tuber sale and not a whole lot else. One day I'd like a blog or something like that, but right now it's just me sharing what I do on Instagram or on Facebook. But I'm trying to do more Facebook stuff because that's where a lot of local people hang out, and I'm just like not really good at using it, but I'll get better. So I'll try to share. I'm gonna make it more of a focus to share the grow bag experience this year.
great. Well, thanks so much. We really appreciate you speaking for us, and I'll follow up with you after this.
Great, nice to see you guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Say any more afterwards.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Real good.
Thanks for coming.
Okay, and we're gonna stay on, Alicia. We hold our meeting, so feel free to hop off.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, this is cool. One day I'll look forward to having my own Dahlia society experience like this. I'll get one. I'll be part of one day.
Well, you can always join us in Ohio if you want. So,
Awesome. And I'm looking forward to the ADS, all the ADS benefits of being a member too. So that's something I'm gonna dive into here pretty soon, see
cool.
what I get access to. All right.
Alicia,
know,
thank you very much. You were wonderful. This is very interesting.
Thank you.
Alicia, did you know the national show is in Portland, Oregon this year?
I did, and I looked at the dates, and I don't know if I can swing it, but it's on the calendar just in case.
If
My
you do,
husband,
see
my
it.
husband and I are overdue for a road trip, so
Yeah. Well, if you do go, there's a lot of us that'll probably be there too.
awesome. Yeah, I'll see if I can make it happen. That'd be awesome. All right, take care.
Bye.
You.
Okay, guys. So I'm a little bit of a slacker. I've had a crazy week. So I don't have a full-blown agenda, but I'm gonna kick it off to Mike to talk a little bit about the plant sale. And pickup is this Sunday.
This
from-
Sunday from 1 to 3 at Willoway Nursery. Rob and I are going out there tomorrow. And with our limited space, we're going to try and stage some of the orders. So it will hopefully be a little quicker when people show up Sunday. But we didn't have as much space this year as we did last year to stage the orders. So we'll do what we can with the space we have, and hopefully everybody will be happy with the plants they get on Sunday.
And rumor is there might be extras.
There will be some extras.
So
Yes.
if you did not get everything that you were hoping to get, you might peruse the extras and snag some more.
Right. We'll have a better grip on which extra ones we have after we fill the orders tomorrow. So,
And please bring small cash so that you can, give the exact change. No credit cards, no Venmo, no PayPal, checks and cash. And like I said, small bills will be best. Because these guys are
Absolutely.
gonna have all they can do to run the orders.
right.
And
So we're all looking forward to it.
be sure to bring a box with you as well for pickup so you have something to put them in.
And
I live
Justin,
out
are
that
you,
way. I can help if you guys need help with staging or just sorting and organizing. I live in Avon. I live near there.
yes, you could be a runner. That'd be great.
Mike, it would be, you really need another person just to do the money, because I remember I was out.
Well,
before.
that's true too, right?
I can't make it.
Well, on Sunday, the pickup, it'll be myself, Rob and Bob Leonelli are coming. But for another person to deal with the
Jennifer
money,
would
that
help.
would be great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Jennifer, would you be able to help out with that?
Yeah, I could totally help. I don't know that you want to put me in charge of money, but grunt work would probably be better. Only because I have ADHD, so I tend to make small mistakes and with little details. So I'm just being honest. Maybe not the money. I'd probably be fine, but yeah.
Okay.
But I could definitely organize and sort and do grunt work happily.
Okay,
Are you gonna put a message out about pickup or do you want me to do it?
I'm gonna do it. I just
Just what time would you, what time are you guys gonna get there? I mean, I could, so if I know what to arrive when to show up to help.
On Sunday, I'll probably be there around noon, 12:30, because
Okay.
I got to put up some signs and things. So
Okay,
anytime from there until the sale, that would be fine. Appreciate it.
thanks. Yeah, absolutely.
And you know which Willoway, it's
Yeah.
the entrance to the corporate offices.
Yeah, okay. I kind of
Okay.
figured.
There'll be a sign marked and stuff. So,
yeah, it's like the second set of doors, I think, on the left.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
I
thank
just
you.
got here from another country, and because of quarantine rules, I couldn't bring any of my dahlias with me. So I
Oh,
probably
no.
got 375 dahlias to sell, for my place. And I'm now looking for anybody that's got some spares.
Yeah, so if anybody has extra tubers, Dwight just moved back from Australia. He joined us at happy hour at the Winking Lizard and kind of filled us in, but he is on the hunt for extra tubers. So if you had tubers that maybe didn't make the sale that you're looking to part ways with, Dwight will be there on Sunday. So if you're going out to that plant sale and want to drop off some extras for him, that would be great.
Thank you.
I know Tammy's got a little personal hoard down there.
I've got a few too I can throw in.
So
Okay.
awesome.
Well, here in Lakeside, the town gardener wants to plant a few dahlia display beds because of all the colors available. And so I'm working with her. We'll be planting a number of gardens.
Okay.
And speaking of other gardens, I went with Elizabeth out to Lantern Court to check out where that DSO sponsored bed is going to be. So Holden sold Lantern Court to the kids camp. And so they're giving us a pretty big area. I want to say it's probably like 20 feet by 15 feet where we can plant a bunch of dahlias. So I'm going to donate some plants to that. And then tomorrow, a few of us are going to Haven, which is kind of a facility in Cleveland that helps people recover from addiction. So Pat, Jerry's son-in-law, myself, and another member, Mark, are going to go and put some dahlias in raised beds for the residents to kind of take care of. So that's kind of another little DSO garden that we'll have this year.
Jessica, there may be some plants also for your endeavor out there too, if you want me to set some aside, certainly.
Sure.
Mike, you have some for Miller too, right? Miller Nursery.
I have to allocate some for Miller's. I have a few more for Tom, some for the Midwest. Jessica, we can give you some. So,
okay.
Yeah. I've got a couple 2022 introductions that I've taken some cuttings off of, and I think I've got one 2023 that I've taken a cutting off of that I'll throw in for the Midwest, along with Tony's virus-free plants that are all going to the Midwest. We thought that would be the best place for those plants. They would be, I think, appreciated, and I think those gentlemen up there would be willing to pay a little money for them too. So that's where they're going. So thanks, Tony.
He's there. He sets his phone down.
Yeah.
So we can do stuff. All right. Outside of that, does anybody have any other questions or things that you'd like to bring up? No, it's a quiet one. Anybody else plant this week? Mark?
I threw in 10 this morning.
Yeah. Ron, you planted too. All right. So some of us, I planted all of mine last week.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you're gonna get very lucky. That's a good thing. This is a great spring for dry soil and planting. So to get your dahlias in now or by next week, that'll be a real jump, and they will fly in June.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, a shorter meeting, but a longer speaker. So we'll take it. Hopefully I'm not the only one who's going to try out some grow bags. If you guys try, we should compare notes at the end of the season.
Oh, can I add something
Sure.
about that grow bag? You know, that Happy Frog, the reason that product works so well is that it's got bat guano, and it's pasteurized bat guano, and that's nitrogen, high nitrogen. And those Happy Frog products were all designed for the marijuana industry, and we've talked about this at different meetings. And they need high nitrogen to grow those massive plants, and those soils are only designed to kick that nitrogen in for about the first month, and then they have to go and add whatever fertilizer they need, and they'll switch to their phosphorus and potassiums. But that works identical for dahlias. So that's why she does well with that, because she gets that high nitrogen boost for that first month or so, and then she has to add those other nutrients to get her trace elements and to get her phosphorus and potassium. But there's also a lot of mycorrhizae and all sorts of other bacteria and good funguses that they add in there, and that all works well. But I have found Happy Frog is not a long-term potting mix. It's a short-term crop mix for a 4-month or 6-month time period. If you try to grow plants, house plants, or long-term plants that grow for years in the same pot, in the same soil, in Happy Frog collapses after 6 months to 9 months, and it's just not a successful potting mix for the long term. But boy, can you fly for the first 3 to 4 months with Happy Frog.
So
Thanks.
yeah, what do you use for your houseplants, Mark?
I use a professional mix that has 55% composted pine bark. If you buy it from the Premier company, it's H2. If you buy it from Sungrow or Fafard, it's called 852, and it's 55% bark. It's probably 10% perlite, and the rest is basically peat moss. It's a great mix for any 4-inch, 5-inch, 10-inch, 12-inch pot, 2 or 3 gallon pots. I grow tropical lantanas and hibiscus in it. It works really great. People like Tom Demeline grow in almost 100% composted bark. So for us homeowners, a 55% bark with perlite and peat moss is a great mix, and it works for years.
Well, I just need to repot like 100 houseplants. That's on my list this summer. So, Tony.
Hey,
I was going to say that's the mix that I recommended in the article for starting tours. The Sungrow 52 or Fafford 852, the 52% bark. It's great for starting tubers, and like Mark said, it's good for potting up stuff too. So I highly recommend it also.
Where do you guys buy that at locally?
For me, it's hard to get. I have to call the representative and find out who will sell me some. I don't know. Where do you get yours, Mark?
Yeah, it's hard to get because it's all commercial, it's all wholesale, and you can't get it at your local garden stores unless you talk them into buying it for you. So there's a supply house in Michigan, in the Detroit area, and I'll order a half a pallet and have that shipped in. Or I also have a friend that has a greenhouse, a commercial greenhouse, a retail greenhouse, and he'll order it for me, and then turn around and sell it to me at a reasonable price, not a double markup. So he helps me get it, but you're not going to find it at your wonderful local Gales Garden Center and Petitti's. It's too expensive. It's only a few dollars more expensive than normal bagged soil, but for them, that's too expensive when they're trying to compete from garden store to garden store and have the lowest price. So they won't carry it, and the average customer won't buy it either. They're just going to buy a normal bag of potting soil, which is 99% peat moss and a little bit of white perlite. And those aren't good mixes, but that's pretty much all our garden stores carry.
That brings to mind a question I was planning or wanting to ask, and that is whether anybody's ever played with biochar. One of the things that Professor Papu is likely to get into is in this coming season is some experiments with biochar. And I'm just curious whether anybody has tried it. I bought some and
Wait.
been running some experiments in the garden this year using a biochar. And I just wondered if anybody else has done that.
Tony does.
What
Yeah,
is
I've actually bought charcoal in bulk. It has to be special kind of charcoal. You can't use the briquettes that are sold in the store because of the chemicals. And then I've mixed it with compost. You have to charge it, and if you're going to make it, and there's a if you're going to actually make the charcoal, it even gets more complicated because it has to be made a certain way. As far as using it, it comes out at a high pH. I mean, I'm talking 8 plus into the 9s. So you got to find out what the pH of the stuff if you're buying it, which I would recommend because it's a lot of work. I made a few yards back years ago, but you've got to know what your pH is so you can tell how much you can use of it. The whole idea of it is the charcoal has so many, you've all heard of activated charcoal, and this is kind of what it is. And then you get, it's kind of like condominiums for microorganisms in your bacteria. So you get a lot more concentration of microorganisms. And used properly, there's wonderful experiments on different crops where it makes an incredible difference, especially in the grape industry, where they talked about using just a handful in each one and getting tremendous results. I didn't see what I would consider eye-popping results with it, but like I said, I made the product myself. If you're buying it, I would know what you're buying. There's an outfit in Michigan that sells it. I wrote an article, Ron, on it probably 6 or 7 years ago, and you could look it up in the ADS bulletin, and I go through great detail about it.
Great. I don't remember that, Tony. Thank you.
Yeah.
The product that I got is pre-charged. It is, I mean, that's what it's that's what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, you use compost. You can use compost tea to charge it, or just good compost, or I used both to make sure it was good and charged. But I was surprised when I sent it in, the pH was high, just as expected.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. Yeah. Okay.
Some of the commercial guys may have adjusted the pH for you with like humic acid or something like that.
Yeah, this is treated with humic acid.
Yep.
Just real quick, I know it's late. How do I copy something from chat? It's like that link she gave us for those bags. I've tried to highlight it and copy and paste it. How do you click on that link, activate it, or how do you copy it?
So if you right click with your mouse on the link, does it give you a copy link?
Oh yeah, it says copy.
And then you can open up your browser and just paste that in.
Well, sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Your resident tech helper here, guys. I'll be sure to get those links off of her though, and I'll put those in the email with the recording.
Hey, I hope I didn't have my microphone on this whole time. I've been doing yard work listening to this stuff. So if that was going, I apologize. Ron, I made some biochar last fall, and I think Tony, I sent him a couple videos of it. I mixed it in with compost, and when I potted up my lantanas with it, I mean, it could be the compost, but I think it was the compost and the biochar that I made. My lantana just came out. I mean, as soon as I repotted, they just came out dark, lush green and like grew leaves that were twice the size of the leaves that were on it before I repotted them up. So
great.
I can't imagine that it's just my compost. I think it had to do with the biochar too, but yeah.
You'll have to come by sometime and I'll show you how I make it, but.
Thanks, okay.
I do have one question.
Okay.
On the extra plants that we will have for sale, hopefully for sale, price wise, are we going to continue the regular retail price that they were all sold for initially?
I will leave that to your discretion, Mike. So if
Okay.
you're looking to
Okay,
clearance out some stuff, I'm okay with that.
okay. Thanks. We probably will.
I'd make that a nice round number.
Yeah, I want to make it easy. Exactly.
That'll help with whoever's doing the
Right. Some people may not have been able to get some things, so if they can this second time around, we'll give them a break. So, okay, that answers that. Thanks so much.
Hey, Jessica, could you forward me on through the text or something that the gentleman that's looking for the extra tubers from Australia? Because we have some we can get to him. Where does he live?
Dwight, you're up by Sandusky.
Yeah, we lived in near Port Clinton, Sandusky. So that's
Okay.
like,
We could figure out somehow to get halfway to each other, I'm sure.
oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm willing to drive like that. That's okay.
Or you could just mail it.
Oh
Right.
yeah, I could do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So somehow get me Bruce's address and I'll mail him a bunch of tubers.
Right. But yes,
Or Dwight, sorry.
that's okay. I will make a note.
Yep.
And Sharon, I saw your note.
Thank you all. I've learned so much today about growing here in the US and in Ohio especially. So thank you very much for all your input.
Are you gonna be at Willoway on Sunday?
Yes,
Okay,
you betcha.
that'd be a good way to get him to him.
Okay. All right. Dwight, do you know what time you're gonna get there?
What time do you want me there?
Why don't you come towards the end, which would give people a little longer time if they're going to drop some off? You might have a chance to pick up a few more. So why don't you figure around the 3 o'clock hour and we'll see how many people bring some extras for you.
Good. Thank you very much.
You bet.
And Sharon, if I get those to your house, maybe sometime tomorrow, set them somewhere in the shade in a brown paper bag. In somewhere, you could get
Yeah.
those to Rob to take out Sunday.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'll be
All right.
home. I think I'll be home all day tomorrow.
Okay, I'll call before I head over.
Okay,
Look at all this teamwork, guys.
after 11.
Thank you all very much. Much appreciated.
Yeah,
You
I
got
like how Sharon doesn't want you to wake her up. So after 11. All right, guys. Well,
Okay.
that's it for tonight.